Hey everybody, I would like to welcome you to the Paint Can channel, or welcome back if you've seen one of the videos. I've only put a couple of them out. This is going to be a motorcycle community. All the content is going to be motorcycle based. Plan on maybe hitting a few rallies this summer if possible. Going to give some install videos, maybe some advice videos. Take it or leave the advice. It is what it is. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. That's fine. I am not a professional YouTuber. I am not a professional mechanic, and I am sure not a professional advice giver. But if you want to be part of something that I think can be fun, I would ask you to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. For those of you that have, thank you. Thank you for being part of this. And hopefully we can have a good time. Today, we're going to talk about what it's going to take to do an iron butt challenge. Are you ready? Is your bike ready? Stick around. So what I want to talk about today is an iron butt challenge. If you're to do an iron butt challenge, or advice from when I did my iron butt challenge, no, I haven't got my certification yet in the mail, still waiting on that, but I did it last August, and I just thought maybe come to you with a few ideas. If you haven't done one yet and you'd like to do one, how do you go about doing it? There's two main things I'd like to talk about, but number one, before we even get to that, is simply go to the Iron Butt Association website. There is a list of different rides you can do, and find out what the criteria is for each ride before you do it. What record keeping must be done, any of that type of thing, so that you're prepared on that level before you decide to actually go out and do the Iron Butt Challenge rides that they offer. At different points, you can do multiple rides at the same time if you feel that you're up to it. If you want to do a butt burner 1500 and a saddle sore 1000 at the same time, you can. There's different hour allotments, and you have to do each one within that time. There's like a butt burner 1500, which I believe is in 30 hours, something on that idea. So there's a lot of different things to choose from before you go out and attempt one of your iron butt rides. So let's get started on the two things that I believe you need to do, or need to be prepared to do, before you embark on your first iron butt challenge if you haven't done one already. Maybe you have done one already, and maybe you've learned some things like I did that maybe worked a little bit better or a little bit worse along the way. In my last video, I showed you some highway pegs that I made up myself, and they were terrible. Absolutely terrible. I definitely learned from that that was not the answer, so I just put on some Kuryakin ones. But the two things that you've got to be prepared, one thing is you have to be prepared yourself. The second one we're going to talk about is the bike has to be prepared to do the ride as well. So in preparing, I'm going to start with number two. In preparing the bike, and I'm not a mechanic. I'm not going to pretend to be a mechanic. But what I can turn some wrenches. Number one thing, where's your oil change at? Proper maintenance on the bike. I would go ahead and change the oil before you go out and try 1,000 or a 15 or whatever. I mean, one of their challenges is a coast to coast to coast type thing, back and forth across the country in a certain amount of hours. Very difficult one. That's one of their most difficult. But if you're just going to do a saddle sore 1000, the 1000 miles within 24 hours, make sure your bike is ready. Make sure your oil change is done. If there's anything else that needs to be lubed, a lot of bikes have a separate oil in the rear end, the gearing. A lot of them have a separate oil for like a CB900. I know they've got actually a transfer case. Some bikes have a separate transmission oil. Make sure all your fluids are topped right off. Do you have a liquid cooled? This is an air cooled bike. If you have a liquid cooled bike, check your antifreeze. Check your coolant that's in it. Make sure that that is up to snuff, up to operating capabilities. Make sure everything on that idea is definitely done. Make sure your tires are good enough. because we may not think of it. We're just going to go for a trip and back, right? Well, my last bike, a Yamaha Striker, I could get around 5,000 miles out of the Bridgestones that came on it. Not going to get into a tire debate of who's better, who's worse, whatever. The bike before that, I had a Yamaha V-Star. I was running Dunlops on that, and I was lucky if I could get 4,000 out of them. So with that thought, with that particular motorcycle, if I could only get 4,000 miles out of a rear tire, I would have a minimum of 25% tread life left before I would take off on that ride, or I'd have a bald tire in an unsafe condition by the time I got back. Just something to think about. 1,000 miles or 1,500 miles or whatever can be a lot on that rear tire. So is your tire up to snuff? Is your chain, your sprockets, your belt? Check those things depending on your drive type that you have. If you have a shaft drive, again, make sure your oils are up to snuff on that. If you have a belt drive, check that belt over really, really good. Because the last thing you want to do 750, 800 miles away is have your belt cause you troubles, or one of your sprockets wear out, or your chain, or something like that. Make sure all of that stuff is good to go. Check your tire pressures. It might seem like a little thing that it's simple. Just go out, look at the tire. Looks like it always does. Well, in that same token, tire pressure, other than safety, can also save you quite a bit in gas mileage. If you have properly inflated tires, you might get better gas mileage. Something to think about with the gas mileage on your motorcycle. You have a bike that you can bomb around town with, and you're taking it nice and easy, and with, man, I can get X amount of miles per gallon. I have really babied this thing, and I have been able to get, say, 50 miles per gallon. You're not going to get that when you are setting sail at highway speeds, because in most cases, and there are exceptions, but most cases people go out and hit the interstates. So interstate speed at, say, 65, 70 miles per hour versus up and down your county roads at 50, 55, just easing along, you will burn more gas at highway speeds. So be prepared for gas stops. Be prepared for the extra that is going to cost you, because you will be burning extra gas, and plan those gas stops out accordingly. Go around, check the nuts and bolts. How honestly long does it take to get a few wrenches out and just check a few things? And I'm not saying, tear things apart and check it, but the stuff that's easy, that's right out there, just throw a wrench on it. Just check, make sure everything is tight. You might find something that, wow, that was loose. Holy cow, glad I caught it. Last thing, again, you want to do is 750 miles into your ride and something comes apart and you're unable to finish your ride. Something simple, because let's face it, it's usually something simple that goes bad and messes up our plans. So maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. Is your bike the type of bike where you can do 1,000 miles on it? Is it an old wore out bike that, let's face it, may not make it? Take those things into consideration. There's a lot of considerations we have to make before we take off on a ride like this. So is the bike ready? Along with, and this is kind of a combination of, is the bike ready and are you ready? How about your seat? Is it comfortable? How about your body position on the bike? Is it comfortable? Where are your bars? Are your bars located in a good position on your bike? Or are they too high? Are they too low? Do you have the wrong style of bar to ride that long? All considerations must be thought out before you go on this ride. Now, on my Star Eluder that I have behind me, I personally think it has a great seat on it. I've adjusted the bars multiple times to try to get it suited for me. Because when the dealers do the quick assembly, they kind of get them so where most people would want it. But maybe not what works for you. You might be considerably taller, considerably shorter. I'm average size. I'm 5'11". So they were close. I raised them up. I got them a little too high. Pulled them back. I think I've got them pretty good right now. So my bar positioning is pretty good and in that aspect. The seat, again, I think it's pretty comfortable. However, I went out, not advertising for anybody, but I went out and I got a seat cushion for it. I took it off, I put it on, just change it up a little bit as I went. I bought an Airhawk. There again, no sponsorship through them. It's just what I found that I thought might work. Are there better ones out there on the market? I don't know. It's the best one I've ever tried because it's the only one I've ever tried. I followed the instructions on proper inflation. I rode with it some beforehand, and it worked for me. It helped. It definitely was a help over what I had just had with the normal seat. So little adjustments that we can make on the bike. Make sure the bike is comfortable for you. And it doesn't matter if it's an older bike or a newer bike. Make the adjustments. Is your suspension adjustable? Mine is bone stock. I can adjust preload on the rear. That's it. I don't have much adjustment. Preload is where it was from the factory. I don't know. I didn't mess with it. I like the way it rides. I didn't mess with it. So kind of some ideas on what to do with the bike. Personally, I threw a good coat of wax on it beforehand because believe it or not, that will change turbulence around you. It will give you better gas mileage. One thing I found, and as you, I don't know if you can see it good in the video or not, but I have a very short windshield right here. It's a very short windshield. However, I also have a tall windshield. So I put the tall windshield on because this particular bike, depending on your helmet and your height, how tall you are and that type of thing, that stock windshield gives a ton of turbulence back on your helmet. This taller one, none. You don't want to go 1,000 miles with a lot of turbulence on your head. You just don't want that. Let's face it. That's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to tire you out. It's something you're not going to want to do. So on to the personal end of it. What can you do to get yourself ready to go on an iron butt ride? You've got the bike adjusted. Everything is comfortable. You know your bike very well. The bike is ready. What about you? Are you ready? This is going to be both a mental and a physical preparation that you're going to need to do to be ready for this. Again, just suggestions, things that worked for me. I am by no means an expert. So comment if you want, whatever, but I am by no means an expert on this. I bought this bike because I wanted to do a lot more long distance riding, and I did that. So the things that will get you personally ready to go on this ride, mental, that is one big thing. Are you capable of riding a long distance with boredom? Will you get bored quickly? If so, do you have something you can play music with? There are some people that will wear earbuds inside their helmet, or they have actual speakers within their helmet. This motorcycle in particular has radio right in it, so I can play the music on the radio while I'm riding, and that's what I did. I plugged my phone in and I played music right off it. Mentally, are you prepared? Can you mentally stay on the bike for up to 24 hours to get this done? Will you give up quick? You may think, shoot, I can do that, not a problem. But truly can you? And there's one way to find this out. First thing I did, go out and ride 350 to 400 miles. Let's give it a shot. Did you get bored? Did you get tired? Where were you at? Where are we at emotionally at that length of a ride? Knock out a 500-mile ride. Where are you now? Because 500 miles, yes, that's half of 1,000. I get that. But believe me, 500 versus 1,000, it seems like it's about 4 times as long. Mentally, be prepared for it. Go out and do some of those mid-range length rides so that when you go out on that 1,000 or 1,500 mile ride, you will somewhat be prepared for it. It will be difficult. There are not a tremendous amount of people that have done the Iron Butt Challenge and succeeded. There are more that have failed than have succeeded. And again, I don't have my certification yet. Maybe I failed. I don't know. All I know is I took the appropriate pictures and receipts and everything that they asked for. I did 10 to 15% more miles than they asked for in well short of the 24 hours. So I got to believe they're going to accept it. If not, hey, let's do it again. I'll do it again this summer if they don't certify it, and I'll just be a little more meticulous if I have to. But along with the mental preparation, so the next part, are you physically prepared? When we talk about are you prepared? We talk about the mentally type thing. Are you physically prepared? Can you physically handle being on the seat of a motorcycle for that many hours? For me, personally, when I did this, I am a truck driver. That's what I do for a living. I'm a truck driver. And in being that truck driver, sorry cops, I may not always abide by my logbook rules. There are a lot of times where I may work 20 hours. There's shifts that I've gone as long as 44 hours. Yeah, that's dumb. Yeah, I got tired. But as a truck driver, I'm used to going long distances at a time. However, my seat moves up and down. I've got an air ride cab. I've got air ride suspension, that air ride seat. I've got air ride all kinds of things. I've got a lot of creature comforts. I've got a leather seat to sit in, with the heat. Anyway, with all that aside, a motorcycle, totally different. You may be able to drive 1,000 miles in your car like nothing. Totally different. Absolutely totally different. Night and day different. Because I can drive 1,000 miles in a car without batting an eye at it. Not a problem. I've driven from where I live in central New York down to Orlando, Florida, many, many, many times straight through. Stop for gas and go. That's it. I've done it with a tractor trailer as well. However, again, motorcycle, very, very, very different. Are you in the physical condition where you can go that many miles? And I'm not saying you got to be slimmed right down. I'm not. I'm not saying you got to be bulked right up, because I'm not that either. When I did it, I was 48 years old. Not a youngster either. The older you get, the harder it's going to get. Let's face it. Can you sit in that one place that long? Do you have any back issues? Maybe a sciatic issue? Knees? Any of that type of thing? And that's why I say go on that 300 or 400 or 500 mile ride before you try to attempt 1,000 or more. That's an awful lot of miles if your body is not prepared. So in that preparation, go on those rides. See, if you can't do 500 miles, you surely can't do 1,000. Like the windshield thing, you got to be prepared for comfort. Comfort and that long distance is very, very key to making you feel better along the way. Like I said, the buffeting of that windshield, so I put a taller windshield that I already had on, made a huge difference. Now, one thing that I had an issue with is my helmet. I have an older helmet that is incredibly comfortable till about that 100 mile mark. At that point, it pushes up on my ears. It's just a seam comes in a weird spot in the padding, and after about 100 miles, I just don't want to wear that helmet anymore. It's just not the answer. So I bought maybe 2 years ago a new helmet, and I did about 300 miles with that helmet. A lot of pressure right in here. There's no way I could go 1,000 miles with it. So I've got two really good, to me, fairly expensive helmets. One was about $250, one was almost $400. And I'm not going to be able to ride either one of them. So I tried putting, basically in my older helmet, I tried putting a neck gaiter, because we've all got neck gaiters because of Corona. I tried to put a neck gaiter kind of down over my head, over my ears, to push in on the bottom of my ears maybe. I did about 500 miles with that helmet. It worked great for about 400. The last 100 was terrible. So I knew this iron butt was not going to work with that. So I took the helmet that I liked the least, but I knew I could get through with it. And that was just a half helmet. I don't like them for safety, especially on a longer trip. And I know more accidents happen close to home, but it's because we do more mileage close to home. It's kind of an obvious thing. But on a longer trip like that, I don't like wearing that half helmet. However, it is comfortable enough to do what I needed to do. So if you watch the video where I did the iron butt, you'll see I just turned the hat around backwards. Definitely not this one, because it wouldn't rub right. I turned my hat around backwards, used that because the helmet over time has gotten a little bit loose, and it worked. It wasn't that big a deal. Behind the big windshield, it was fine. However, from central New York, where I live, I started out in New Berlin, New York. Where I started from there, I ran into fog all the way to Erie, into Pennsylvania. The windshield worked fairly well. Had glasses on, obviously. Worked fairly well. But still, face was getting wet. If I'd had a full face helmet, wow, would it have been better? Got some sunburn on my face by the time it was over. Would not have had that with a full face helmet. But on that note, both of my full face helmets have tinted shields. In the hours it's going to take, there's a very, very strong likelihood that either in the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, you're going to be running in the dark. So do you bring a spare shield with you, or what do you do there? All again in preparation. You've got to prepare for this. You've got to know, if I'm going to be riding in the dark, or maybe I'll just put the clear shield on the entire day and just wear sunglasses. Whatever will work for you there. Make sure your helmet is prepared. Make sure your route is prepared. But when it comes to your body, it's the comfort. The comfort level of the wind, the comfort level of the helmet, the comfort level, if nothing else, your jacket, your jeans, your whatever you choose to wear. When I travel longer distances, I have a pair of jeans that have Kevlar in them. A little extra safety, not the greatest, but it's a little more. I ride with a leather jacket. That's even better yet. Still no padding. Not great, but I'm not here to preach to you safety and how to be the most safe, any of that. I'm not the most safe. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not going to try to hide anything. But I also wear a vest, and that has some padding in it, but that vest, a leather vest on top of a leather jacket, I got to tell you, it gets heavy. And at the end, about halfway through the day, that vest came off. That went in the saddlebag because it was just too heavy. I didn't like it going that distance. There's, like I said, there's a lot of little things to get you prepared. The comfort level is one of the most. I've heard a lot of people, I did not do this, but I've heard a lot of people say, whether it be Tylenol or whatever your pain reliever of choice is, about a day before, start taking some of them so you'll be ahead of it. So your aches and pains will be lessened. I did not do that. Is it a good idea? I don't know. I really don't know. Some people say that. What I will say is I've heard some people, and I've seen some videos of people talking about make sure you have plenty of coffee for the caffeine, that type of thing. I'm 100% against that. And here's why. Caffeine that is in coffee or in soda or anything like that is a diuretic. It will dry you out. it will dehydrate you. The last thing you want physically on a ride, and let's face it, most people are going to do this ride in the summer months when it's warm. The wind blowing by you, the sun baking on you, all that put together, you're going to easily become dehydrated. Now you're going to drink something that will dehydrate you more. No, please don't do that. Water. I don't care if you like water, don't like water. I have a small cup holder here. I kept a 20-ounce Yeti with ice water in it. In my saddlebag, I had a 40-ounce Yeti with just water in it. It was cold when I left the house. I could continually just top off the one I had, being that I had a helmet on. I could reach down, grab that cup while I was driving down the road, take a sip. Not enough to really pound the water where you've got to take pee breaks every 5 minutes, but enough that I stayed hydrated with water. Literally, I went through the 20 and the 40, and I stopped and bought a couple bottles of water, because throughout the day, you need the hydration. You will sweat it out, or the wind will just kind of blow it out of you as you're riding down the road. So I would strongly speak against anything with caffeine in it, and heavy meals. I would stay away from heavy meals. Something quick, something easy. Sugar, there's debates on that. Sugar will give you energy, but sugar will also make you crash. It will give you that mid-afternoon crash. I stayed away from sugar. I stayed away from caffeine. I was feeling pretty good at the end of it physically, with one exception, and this is a rule that I have for myself I'm going to tell you about, that a friend of mine told me. He says, anytime you travel a long distance, every 100 to 125 miles, stop. Walk around a little bit just for a few minutes. You don't have to take a 15-minute break, anything like that. Stop every 100 to 125 and just walk around a little bit. Your knees will thank you. So when I left the house about that distance, I stopped. This bike can easily go 250 on a gas tank. So I figured if I stop at a 125, I stop again at another 125, being 250, there's a gas stop, I will stop again and again and again. Every approximately 125 was my goal. When I got to my turnaround place at around 5:30, because I did an out and back. I didn't do a straight line 1,000 miles. I went out and back. So when I did the turnaround, I tell you, I felt great. I was barely tired. I was mentally prepared, I was physically prepared, and I was doing great. So I went against my own advice, and I extended it out to about 150. About halfway home, my knees were killing me. I had made a 150 and about a 100, 125. I was getting low on gas. And man, I'll tell you, that 150 mile leg of it, that was too much. My knees were killing me. Got off, got gas. I took about 15 minutes at that point. I did get out. I walked around, got to where I was limbered up again, got back on the bike, went back to the 125s. I was good for the rest of the ride home. That rider, that guy lives maybe 20 miles from me. He rode out to Laconia just on a whim last summer. The summer prior to that, he went out to Sturgis with a few buddies, just rode out almost straight through. Stopped, I think, once, for a nap type thing, and rode the rest of the way. He and a group went to California and back in about 2 weeks. So he's a long distance rider, way more than I'll probably ever do. And he was correct. 100 to 125, that's where you want to hit. Some people will say, well, if you need a cup holder for your water, just take a car. Well, if all you're going to do is 100 miles that day, I agree with you. But if you're going to try to knock out 1,000, you don't want to stop that much, where every time you need a little sip, you've got to stop. No. You got to have water with you that you can grab and go. So whether it's a cup holder, whether it's somewhere you can grab it, jacket pocket, I don't know. However your bike is set up, just however that works for you. Make sure you're prepared. That's what I want to leave you with here. Make sure you're prepared. Plan a route ahead of time. Another mistake that I made. I was going to go down to Virginia in that area, maybe hit part of the Blue Ridge Parkway, turn around and come back up. Plan B was to go toward Maine. Check the weather. I only had just one day on vacation that I could do it. I thought I was ready, the bike was ready, I was ready to go. I planned about 2 days ahead of time. We're go time. We're going to do this on that one day. A bunch of storms popped up in my area, heading northeast. Well, Maine was going to be out, but I thought the way it looked on the radar, I could probably beat the rain if I left at a specific time. There's this one wave coming through south of me. I could be just after that, and I could beat the next wave. So that's plan. I'm going with plan A. I get up 2 o'clock in the morning. I look at the radar. Everything south of me, everything east of me was just a washout on the radar. Well, I can't go up into Canada that direction because the borders were closed during COVID. So the only opportunity I had, I started scrolling across my phone and I could head toward Ohio. So that's what I planned on doing. I don't know where my gas stops are going to be, but I know the interstate I'm going on, there's plenty of gas stops. I've gone across it a lot of times with the truck. So I know I've got enough gas stops, not a problem. But I wasn't prepared for the route, the traffic timing, that type of stuff. I ran right through Cleveland in a rush hour. Not a great deal, but it is what it is. So I would say plan out your route. Middle of June, around I think it's the 21st, something like that, is the longest day of the year. So if you want the most daylight, that'd be a great time to do it. Otherwise, plan on some darkness. You're going to see some darkness. But plan your route. Get yourself ready. Make sure your bike is ready. Make sure you have crossed your T's, dotted your I's, everything you can do to make this the best ride you can. But above all, if you're going to do it, be as safe as you can and just have fun with it. If it turns out you can't do it, did you have a fun ride? If it turns out that the Iron Butt Association says that we're declining it because of this or that, can you go back and say you had a nice ride? I can go back and say it was a long ride, it was a difficult ride, but I still had a good time doing the challenge. So if they were to decline it, okay, I'll try again. No big deal. But don't make yourself miserable for it. It's not worth it. Again, make sure your bike is ready. Make sure you're ready. Have a good time with it. If there's something that you have found that you would maybe agree or disagree with me, leave it in the comments. Feel free. That's fine. That's why the comment section is there. Comments are enabled. If this is the type of thing that you're interested in, some discussions, some install videos, I would ask that you would subscribe. I thank you for those who have subscribed already. Get tongue twisted here. If you have subscribed already, thank you. If you have not, I would ask that you would consider it. I would ask that you would hit that bell notification so that every time I upload a video, you will be able to catch it. I'm going to try to do one a week now that we're getting into better weather, and we'll see where that goes. But I'm going to try to do some ride videos, going to do some install videos. I got some really cool plans on the bike. I've got some parts coming in, got some graphics being planned out by a guy. Got a few riding buddies that we're going to mix in on the channel as well. So just going to try to make this community for motorcyclists. So if that's something you're interested in, again, subscribe and be part of something we can make fun. Well, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And yes, I'm a believer, and I would ask that God would bless each and every one of you today.